Hello and welcome to Steve and Dave's 50 Years Ago this month. This time around, we're talking about the Billboard Hot 100 charts of October 12th, 1974. We're going to be looking at the top 10 and do a little bit of cherry picking from the top 40. And we might as well just start right off with everyone's favorite sweetheart
No.
from the early 70s.
Well, I mean, that may be the case. This is, ladies and gentlemen, Olivia Newton-John, who's at the top of the charts in mid-October of 74 with I Honestly Love You.
I honestly love you. And I believed her and
I know that you did.
had many sleepless nights. But this was from her Olivia Newton-John. It's a kind of strange thing when we talk about albums and things like that because she had international albums. She had albums that she made for the American market and so on. So, I Honestly Love You came from the Long Live Love album, her fourth studio album, as it was in the UK. In the US, the album was named after her first single, If You Love Me, Let Me Know, and it was released on May 28th, 1974. So, other than the title track, If You Love Me, Let Me Know, three songs were from her previous two international albums, Olivia from 72 and Music Makes My Day from 73, and six were from the UK album, Long Live Love. So, are we confused yet?
Jeez. Yeah, I am.
This was her third album released in the US, and it was the first of her albums, of her US albums, to top the Billboard 200. Um, now, you kind of poo-pooed that sweetheart thing, but every guy, every 13-year-old I knew was in love with Olivia Newton-John. And are you saying you weren't? How old were you then,
I just
nine?
I guess I was 10 or something. I mean, it was fine. Yeah, yeah, she
You were
was
10 in 1974? Okay,
um
whatever.
11. No, it's 11. I take that back. So she was fine. This was the best Olivia from this era is the up-tempo Olivia,
Well, all
and
right, all right.
this is a little saccharine.
It's a little saccharine, uh, granted, but that was back in the day when that didn't bother me as much. Um, but all right, so you were already jaded enough not to really be.
I
All
guess
right, okay.
it just didn't make an impression on me. I guess really, as one of her
Oh man,
one of, but she's also the case, right? Though she's still at this point in 74 kind of international figure. So she's operating in Australia, she's operating in the UK. She hasn't made that kind of transition to the United States, which she would at the end of the decade, right? And she would,
oh, at the end of the
I
day,
think,
this is she's right in the middle of launching her U.S. career. This is
this is yeah, okay.
right. So she's already made a bit of a splash and is going to continue to do so. Strangely enough, primarily in the country charts first,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right. Right.
Um, although a lot of her first hits were crossovers, but she really made her first big splash as a country singer. Anyway, um, this song was written by Jeff Barry and Peter Allen, and we need to stop and talk a little bit about those
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
I don't know how Jeff Barry managed to stay under my radar this entire time because he's an incredible success story. And people that know more about the music industry, like yourself, for them, Jeff Barry is a well-known name. But I just discovered him doing the research for this song. So among his most successful songs that he co-wrote were "Do Wah Diddy Diddy,"
Oh, yeah.
the Do Run Run. Then He Kissed Me, Be My Baby, Chapel of Love, A River Deep, Mountain High. Um, People will have Phil Spector in
Oh,
mind,
absolutely.
right,
Right.
when they hear these titles.
Yes.
But these were all written with his then wife, Ellie Greenwich,
Yes.
and Phil Spector.
Right. Brill building.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, Leader of the Pack, which he wrote with
Yeah.
and Shadow Morton, and Sugar Sugar, who he wrote with,
Well,
which he wrote with Andy Kim.
just don't forget Sugar Sugar.
Oh man,
I know.
just huge, right? So in 1964, um, Lieber and Stoller brought Barry and Greenwich on board with their new label, Redbird Records, as songwriter producers. And of Redbird's first 20 releases, 15 hit the charts. That's a batting average that will take you
Yes,
to
it
the
will.
series, right?
Yes, it will.
And those were all co-written by Barry and Greenwich. All the hits. That's an incredible record.
No, it's amazing. No, no, it's
Uh, in 1966, Don Kirshner brought Barry into the Monkees project, asked him to produce some tracks for them, and
I love how you say the Monkeys Project, by the way.
well, it
Yeah.
was right.
A bit like, whatever.
It was a project. Anyway, uh, so
Sorry to add.
he produced several songs for them. One of the
Yeah.
things that he did was to bring a couple of Neil Diamond songs,
Well,
um,
yeah.
and I'm sure you know one of them.
Daydream Believer. No, that's John Stewart.
You're on the right track.
Valerie.
Believer is part of the title.
Uh, I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm a believer.
Oh, I'm a believer, of course. I'm sorry.
I
Well,
thought
who could
love was only
forget?
true in fairy tales, but now I'm a believer. Uh,
Well, the Monkeys Project. That's going to take me a while to get over that. Go ahead. You continue.
anyway, um, and a second hit that he produced for them was another Diamond song. You might not get this one as quickly as you got the first one.
Oh, I, yeah, you're probably right.
A little bit me, a little bit you.
Oh,
Neil Diamond.
yeah, yeah. Uh, that's one of my favorites. No,
Well,
I do like that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm a believer. Just shot right up to number one and was one of the biggest selling records of all time. Just incredible success for him and the Monkees. Um, of course, Don Kirshner left the project at some point,
I love, I love that so much. Yeah, okay. Yes, Kirshner left the project. Sorry. Yeah.
or was asked to leave. Um,
Oh,
yeah, well,
oh.
that did not end on a friendly note, but
Oh, okay.
he moved on and went on to the Archies project, and he brought
Come on. Oh, come on.
he brought Barry
Oh,
along with him for that.
well, as they did the Archie's project,
Yes, and
Project Archie.
Barry created several dozen songs for the Archies, including
What?
Sugar Sugar. Uh,
Several dozen songs for the Archies?
Several dozen songs. Who knew? Who knew that they even had several dozen songs? But yes,
I
and
mean,
apparently,
how do they find time between Riverdale High and
and the malt shop. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Well, they were
oh
engaged
my
and dedicated
God.
kids.
Well,
Um,
oh my God.
but at that time, uh, Barry had started his own record company, Steed Records, and one of his artists was Andy Kim. So
Oh yeah.
so they got together on Sugar Sugar and just created one of the best bubblegum hits
I
of
think
all times.
that's peak bubblegum.
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree. That's peak bubblegum.
Then he went on to write for TV. He wrote theme songs for One Day at a Time, a great theme song. The Jeffersons, Moving On Up, Family Ties,
Oh, I have to.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's no
Ah,
wonder that in May 1991, Barry and Greenwich were inducted into the
I mean,
Songwriters Hall of
absolutely.
Fame. They were among the 2010 recipients of the Ahmet Ertegun Award for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 2004, Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest rock songs included six Greenwich Barry compositions, more than any other non-performing songwriting team. So yeah, he, a big name, very, very influential, and a lot of great
Oh,
songs under
I
his,
mean, yeah, you could, it's a Mount Rushmore like resume for
right?
this era. Yeah.
Peter Allen, on the other hand,
Yeah.
um, better known in Australia,
Who I
uh,
remember a little bit. Yes. Right. Cabaret
and
kind of performer. Yeah.
yes, yeah, people who are into musical Broadway would
Yes.
also know Peter Allen. Um, he received the fourth songwriting credit for Arthur's theme, best that you
Uh,
can do.
let's see. Okay.
Um,
So I think I could name the other three.
all right, so yeah,
So
let's
I
hear it.
think it's Christopher Cross, Burt Bacharach, and Carol Bayer Sager.
Very good. That's exactly right. And
Peter Allen got the four. Yeah. Right.
I'm sure the reason that he got credit is because um, he and Bear Sager had already written a song together that just was never recorded, and they just kind of they used it for parts for Arthur's theme.
Well, that's actually, I mean, that's how that should work. You know, that's typically, it oftentimes doesn't, but that's how that should work, right? It's
And the
good.
line, um, "When you get caught between the moon and New York City,"
Oh,
was Peter
you're gonna make
Allen's
me.
line.
You're gonna make me. You're gonna make me cry now. All right.
He
Yeah, it's
came
his
up
line.
with that while in a plane in a holding pattern at night over LaGuardia.
I'm telling you, you talk about value added. You're not getting this on any other and any. Yeah,
So,
it's good.
that's the story of that. But what he's maybe best known for is that he was Liza Minnelli's first husband,
Yes,
and
that's
he was one of the first famous Australians to die of AIDS.
yeah, that's right. I think he was a cabaret performer of some note, and he had a kind of career in the United States that involved variety shows and kind of late night shows. And so he was very witty. And so he had, yeah, so he was
A very large personality by
large
all accounts.
personality.
Yeah.
He had this, I Go to Rio became a kind of hit for
Hmm.
him.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely remember Peter Allen.
There
Yeah.
was even a musical made about his life, The Boy from
Yeah,
Home.
that's right. Yeah.
So, probably not as big a name in the music industry, actually, but
I think that's
some
probably fair.
interesting background there anyway.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Um, back to the song, was produced by John Farrar, who produced most
Mhm.
of Olivia Newton-John's music throughout her career, or at
He's
least
also, yeah, I
in the
think that's
first
right.
half anyway.
And a huge figure in Australia. I
Yes.
mean, he's is as dominant a figure in music in Australia as anybody. Long career.
Well, and we won't get into it here. We've talked about it before, but there's a huge intersection between Cliff Richard
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and Olivia Newton-John and the Shadows and all that. But we don't need to rehash that. We've talked about it in other episodes. Anyway, back to the song. The single reached number one in Australia, um, top three of the Billboard Hot 100 within 6 weeks, and it only took 8 weeks for it to get all the way to the top. Uh, Certified gold, of course, reached number one on the adult contemporary chart, number six on the country chart. It
I
failed to get into the top 20 in the UK. But it did chart there in 1983 when it was re-released for her greatest hits album.
Yep, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. So, she must have still had, because this is not particularly a country song, but she still had those country chops and is still a recognized voice in country music at this point. And so I just thought it was interesting that she's charted so high in the country charts. There's no kind of Nashville kind of
Not
twang
really,
to this.
not in this song, right? It's just
Yeah, not at
um,
all. Ah, it's interesting. Yeah.
pretty much straight up saccharine. Shall we listen
Yeah.
again?
Oh, let's do.
All right.
Maybe I hang around here a little more than I should. We both know I got somewhere else to go. But I got something to tell you, but I believe you really ought to know. I love you. I honestly love you.
I love you too, Olivia.
Well, there you have it. My goodness, Olivia Newton-John, thank you for keeping yourself together. I was worried.
Well, it wasn't easy, but
My goodness. So topping the charts is Olivia Newton-John's "Honestly Love You." Oh my.
let's just move on.
Let's just move on as best we're able. We've talked about the song at number 2 last month, and that was Billy Preston's "Nothin' from Nothin'." Billy Preston, of course, is at his peak in terms of popularity as a solo artist in this era of the 1970s. At number 3, then another song that we talked about last month. Then Came You, terrific song from Dionne Warwicke and the Spinners. To some degree, Dionne Warwicke is on her way down as the Spinners are on their way up. I don't want to overstate that too much, but this will be it's quite a pairing, and it's
Yes,
a terrific song.
yes, it is. And I think the Dionne Warwick, well, she was so incredibly tied to the career
Well, that's
of Bacharach and David, right? And
yes,
at
that's
this
right.
point, their career is also
Well,
it's not tanking, but it has certainly reached a low point.
and it has, and in fact, I think by this point, they have split. Because that was the Lost Horizon project where they came apart. But yeah, and so I think
The ill-fated
the
Lost
ill-fated, yeah,
Horizon project.
yeah. To tune into our Backrack and David behind the curtain for more information about that. That's really quite a story. But yeah, so but I'm surprised that she didn't do more of these, or that more of these didn't make their way to the studio,
Well,
because
there had
these
to have been
kinds of
plenty of
shows,
people that wanted to work with her, right? I mean
that would be my guess. I mean, absolutely. And it's a great song. That's
yeah.
a great song. And so okay. And so at number 4 then takes us to a well, it's studio creation of sorts. It's the first class with Beach Baby. And Beach Baby is the brainchild of one John Carter, who was uh
He was a
a,
warlord on Mars, right? If I remember correctly.
I, I I'm less certain about that. But he had a career in the UK as a producer and kind of music impresario, I think it's fair to say. He penned this Beach Baby with his wife Jill Shakespeare, and as I mentioned, again, it's a kind of studio creation. This is a kind of a pairing between Carter's production skills and Tony Burrow's vocal skills. And so Tony Burrows, who was a longtime studio musician of some note in
Isn't
the
this like
UK.
his third hit
Yes,
with a third music
that's right.
group coming in? Incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah, he had the pipes, the golden pipes. And so what's interesting about Beach Baby, and again, it's again the first class doesn't exist. It's again a studio creation, but the song itself is a kind of pastiche between a kind of poppy nostalgic tune and some a classical interlude. in sort of the last third of the song that got into copyright trouble and wasn't particularly interesting. And so in the United States in particular, that would be the part that where the fade out uh, would happen. And so there was always a lot of frustration, I think, on Carter's part that the entire song was not embraced in full, rich, and robust way, because, after all, this is a not just a song, but a kind of work of art. You read descriptions of it as being kind of a song that's kind of welded together, and that orchestral piece does seem to be sort of like, you can even see like the weld, you can see the rivets and stuff. It doesn't quite work. It peaked at number 4 in the U.S. and was very much
it sounds like we didn't miss much then.
No, we didn't miss. No, I think we didn't miss much, and I think, if anything, I think Carter was maybe a bit too ambitious, or maybe a bit too pretentious. I'm not quite sure, but it was a kind of song of the time and this era, and it lingered, and still lingers on oldies radio. There's a certain kind of nostalgia that's attached to it. Again, the High School Hop is really kind of an homage to the 50s, although again, these are British writers, singers, and musicians, but there's a kind of American graffiti kind of.
This could very easily be a Beach Boys song.
Well, I think, yeah, it certainly could. I think a lot of people thought it was the Beach Boys, at least upon first hearing. And candidly, the Beach Boys could have used a song like this in 1974. This was a kind of, low watermark for Brian Wilson and the lads. I don't have much more to say about it. We should listen to. This is it for the first class. They won't really make a dent in the American charts after this.
But it's a great song. I'm glad they did it.
But I would not disagree. There's a certain craftsmanship to it that is worth listening to. And so here we go. Beach Baby. Whoops, from the first class. So there we go.
Yeah, it sounds like a summary of American graffiti.
It's there's a certain kind of craftsmanship to it that, a pop song is its own way a kind of work of art, and there's something there that makes it kind of, it's ear candy, but it's catchy as hell. And so there we go, Beach Baby. Now we're going to shift gears here. So at number 5, this is a kind of a political song from an artist who's not necessarily oftentimes associated with political speech. Although I think if you look at this person's career a little bit more closely, there's a lot more there than maybe meets the eye initially. So this is Stevie Wonder at number 5 with "You Haven't Done Nothing."
From the album Fulfilling This First Finale. His 17th studio album. Released on July 22nd, 1974, by Tamla, of course, the Motown subsidiary. It's the fourth of 5 albums that's from what's considered his classic period.
Right.
And it was his second album to top the Billboard's top LPs and tapes chart. But it also reached number 1 on Billboard's Soul LPs chart. And this was close to the start of Wonder's absolute domination of the Grammys.
I think that's right. Yeah.
It won in three categories: Album of the Year, and this was his second consecutive win in that category. Um, and there's the story about Paul Simon, who won Album of the Year in 1977.
Yeah, something like that.
And in his acceptance speech, he said, "I'd like to thank Stevie Wonder for not putting out an album this year."
Well, this is, I mean, right.
Anyway, he won Best Male Pop Vocal and Best Male Rhythm and Blues Vocal Performance for Boogie On Reggae Woman.
He's at the height of his powers, height of his crossover appeal, as you're suggesting, right? Incredible creativity in terms of technology and production, as well as then, incredible writing. I mean, it's
The album was voted number 413 in Colin Larkin's all-time top 1,000 albums. Was also included in the book 1,001 Albums You Must
yeah.
Hear Before You Die. Obviously, Stevie Wonder wrote this himself. It was produced by Wonder himself and associate producers Robert Margouleff and Malcolm Cecil, who also were responsible for the synthesizers on the song that we're going to be looking at. This song became Wonder's fourth number one hit, his 10th number one soul hit, and it also reached number one in Canada. Billboard described it as, quote, exceptionally powerful, end quote, particularly praising the synthesizer arrangement, vocal performance. Cashbox called it, quote, super track filled with memories of the great Superstition a while back,
Oh yeah.
end quote. And said that again, quote, musically, horns, keyboards, bass, and guitar highlight, and vocally, aside from Stevie's magic, the Jackson 5 is right in there with the doo-wops.
This is one of the again why this didn't happen more often. So but yeah,
Yeah,
there they are.
there they are. Well, it probably didn't happen more often because up until that point they had been very, very busy doing their own thing. But yeah, from 1974 on, they should have been available for a few more projects like
Well,
this.
that's just be my guess, and
Yeah.
again, they're part of the Motown family and the Tamla family and all of this. It just, I mean, there were definitely reasons to explain why it didn't happen, but yeah.
Anyway, Record World called it, quote, a message song to end them all, end quote. In which Wonder, quote, deals directly with those who'd only promised their way to a better world, end quote.
This is so interesting. Yeah.
Meaning, here, very specifically, Richard Nixon.
Yeah, this is so interesting, Dave, because it was perceived at the time as an incredibly barbed political kind of commentary. This was like pulling no punches. I think 50 years removed, it's just like this. I mean, I think that political content is completely gone. I mean, people don't have any kind of recognition of it. But at the time, this was fiery stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we have gone through something of an evolution there too in terms of political music. We've seen hip hop, we've seen Rage Against the Machine.
Sure.
Some people who get very, very angry and very political. So by comparison,
That's true.
this seems fairly tame, but at the time, it was right out there.
It was right out there, and it's rare that political music is as popular as this was. I mean, it's rare that a song that is this charged politically is, they're dancing to it on Soul Train and American Bandstand. I mean, it's unusual. I mean, it's part of his gift. I mean, it's part of his gift. But I do think
it's also kind of a sign of the times. When we're talking about like Motown, especially.
Yeah, I think that's fair. No, I think that's right. Yeah, you're right.
Gordon Berry resisted anything political for as long as he could,
Yes.
right? But
Boy, that's for sure. I mean, throughout the 60s, for God's sake. I mean, a black label in the 60s, not eschewing politics and civil rights. I mean, it's like, what? But yeah, that's right.
so, it was probably bound to happen. And because some of his biggest artists were going in that direction, he could really not put a break on.
I think that's right. Plus, it's Nixon
Yes.
who blocked the sun at this point. I mean, the frustration with Nixon, the shock with Nixon was just omnipresent, and
And
it's easy to lose sight of that. But
he resigned 2 days after this record's release.
yeah,
And there probably was not a causal relationship there, but
but but we're just asking questions.
yeah, who's to say for sure?
Who's to say for sure? Yeah.
The B-side,
help
Big
things.
Brother, also a political statement, was taken from his 1972 album, Talking Book. So
My God, the albums this guy's putting out in this era are
just
just unbelievable.
unbelievable. And the quantity and maintaining quality, incredible. But he also knows the best musicians. Um,
Yeah.
and recruits them again and again for his works.
Totally agree. And as you alluded to earlier, his use of synthesizers at this point was still, I mean, this was still like highly technical and highly was difficult, right? That you needed people to program them. This was not just something that you sat down and played, but this was a kind of like a science lab. And if Wonder
and the use of the drum machine here as well, right? I mean, it's electronical. It's electronics. It's very technical. But that's kind of who Stevie Wonder was, right? Just kind of a universal musical genius in terms of he would take whatever was available and see what he could do with it.
But this is just what we're getting at. The notion here is that this is not a guy that's resting on his laurels. This is a guy who is pushing the boundaries, and it's pushing the boundaries of technology in the 70s. This is a kind of technological wonder in a way, right? The song, because of this use of the synthesizers. And this guy is just, hitting on all cylinders. It's just unbelievable.
And apart from doing the lead vocals on this, he was playing the clavinet. And supplementing the drum machine with a bass drum, a hi-hat, cymbal. He was playing those. Wow.
Which people will go to their graves saying that Wonder was a better drummer than he was a keyboardist, right? It's just like, where does it end with this guy? You're right.
Right. The horns in this song were uncredited, and I think this is probably one area that he did not do on his own. He did harmonica, fine, but he probably was not playing the horns. But that's about it.
Right.
That's about all he would not have been able to do on his own. Really incredible stuff.
Yeah.
So, shall we listen in?
Let's do.
So much concerned but not involved with decisions that are made by you. But we are sick and tired of hearing this song, telling how you are gonna change right from wrong. 'Cause if you really want to hear our views, you haven't done nothing.
Yeah. So there we go. Yeah, the great Stevie Wonder. At number 5 with "You Haven't Done Nothing." Take that, Richard Nixon. Boy, okay. So at number 6 then is Cat Stevens with his version of Sam Cooke's "Another Saturday Night." And for Stevens, this is a very unusual song. Just to set it up, it's a non-album single. And so Stevens' albums in the 70s were celebrated. He had a number of hits, of course, and we've talked about several of them over the past few years. But his deep cuts on these albums were considered, they're widely hailed. And he was an album artist as much as a singles artist. So it is an unusual move for him to cut a single and release it when it's not attached to an album. It also is unusual for Stevens to cover someone else's music. He even as a young performer, he was performing his own tunes. And so plus it's kind of an odd song for him to cover. The Sam Cooke number, there's a certain kind of melancholy and kind of loss and kind of, a kind of loneliness, which isn't, but it's all wrapped up in a kind of, it's a little bit kind of, little sweet. It's a little, there's a certain kind of, even though it's kind of danceability to it that is very un-Stevens-like. And so this is an odd way for Stevens to say goodbye to popularity, but to some degree it was. This is the last of his singles that will chart into the top 10. This peaked at number 6. And it also coincides with a steep decline in popularity and kind of personal decisions and explorations in his life, where he's becoming much more interested in religion. Eventually, of course, embraces Islam fully and leaves the music business for some nearly 3 decades. But there's just something about this particular song that's odd. Now, penned by Sam Cooke in the early 60s, 1962 to be specific, while Cooke was on a tour of the UK. It peaked at number 10 for Sam Cooke, and Sam Cooke is a pivotal figure in the history of popular music, a kind of star-crossed figure, I think, to be fair. But I think he was widely hailed as a credible vocalist, and also a very, very accomplished writer. And he also crossed paths with Lou Adler and Herb Alpert. And to learn more about Cooke in that regard, we'd encourage you to take a listen and watch our Herb Alpert Behind the Curtain, where they
that's in some ways he was their introduction to the music industry.
That's exactly
that's where they
right.
cut their teeth.
There wouldn't, I don't know that there would be a Herb Alpert and Lou Adler, certainly a Herb Alpert without that time with Cooke. It's odd. It's an odd song. Where is the philosophizing? Where is the kind of where is the gazing toward the horizon? The kinds of things that kind of pop psychology. I mean, the kinds of things that Stevens' songs were really kind of known for.
You can only stare at your navel for so long.
I guess that's it. I mean, because in the end, right, you got to have some fun, and so there's a carefreeness to this that I guess is appealing, but it's an odd song in the Stevens catalog. So let's listen to it here.
Another Saturday night and I ain't got nobody. I got some money 'cause I just got paid. Now how I wish I had someone to talk to. I'm in an awful way. I got in town a month ago. I've seen a lot of girls since then. If I can meet them, I can get them. But as yet I haven't met them. That's how I'm in the state I'm in. Oh, another Saturday night.
So imagine, right? Cat Stevens that you can dance to. But well, there you have it. So Cat Stevens, who peaks at number 6 with Another Saturday Night. So now we're going to, so at number 7 is the song that, oh man, I don't know that Elton John ever rocks harder, and the Elton John Band ever rocks harder than they do here with this one. This is at number 7, The Bitch Is Back.
Yeah, from the widely sustained album
Yes.
Caribou.
Oh, that's That's absolutely true. Right.
His eighth studio album, which was released on June 24th, 1974 by MCA Records in the US, June 28th by DJM Records in the UK. It was his fourth chart-topping album in the United States and his third in the United Kingdom. Let's be honest, most of that came from pre-orders.
Yes, that is
People
absolutely
who
true.
people who had not heard anything from the album had already ordered it because it was Elton John's new album, period.
Right.
It did have a couple of strong singles. The first, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, and then this one, The Bitch Is Back. But nobody who was involved in that project was particularly happy with it, and the critics weren't particularly happy with it. And many John fans weren't
Right.
particularly happy with it.
That's really true.
But
That's really true.
it did kick out a couple of worthwhile singles. Um, this is the single reached number one in Canada. It was his sixth number one in that country. Hit number four in the United States and number 15 in the United Kingdom. Cashbox said that, quote, Elton and the band are in rare form here and prove that rock comes as easily as the ballads do, end quote.
Yes.
And that, quote, the hooks are incredible, the vocals are intense, and the playing is right there, end quote. Record Roll called it, quote, rambunctious, not bitches, rambunctious rouser that doesn't mince words, end quote. So,
Yeah.
in spite of the fact that this was kind of thrown together, I think they had 9 days to record this before starting a tour in Japan. And even Gus Dungeon, who was their producer for all their albums, and was responsible for some of John's best music, was really down on it. He was not at all happy with the way things turned out there. And of course, it was recorded. Caribou is the title is a reference to the studio where they recorded Caribou Ranch in Colorado. We've talked about that on a number of occasions.
Yes, we have, and not necessarily the best place to be getting a lot of work done.
Famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it.
Oh my God!
It was an ill-fated studio, but a lot of good music was recorded there. There's no question about that.
I mean, yes, it's amazingly. I mean, they might as well. I mean, while it was in Nederland, Colorado, it might as well have been in the Andes, right, in Peru, given all the marching powder that flowed through there. I mean, at some point, this magical run of albums had to end, and I guess this is it. And I think it's fair to say that he never approached the heights in terms of his album output that he did. I mean, Caribou is the end. I mean, he's fallen off the incredible mountain that. I mean, it's an enormous disappointment. It's rare that that albums are as widely derided as something like this, but this album, I mean, it's never even had a chance. I mean, even there's no revisionists in this, and people just think it's lousy.
And that I think that was hard for a lot of people to say because Elton John had become the absolute darling of rock critics.
100%, Dave. I mean, 100%. I think for the previous 5 years, I mean, even dating back to the very early 70s and maybe even late 60s, even something like Tumbleweed Connection, right, which didn't have any hits, was like, oh, this is an artist. Look at this album. It's a coherent whole. And then Caribou's just garbage.
Although it had some very, very talented people. I mean, the usual suspects, right? Johnston on guitar, Murray on bass, Olson on drums.
It's
And people like Dusty Springfield on backing vocals. We're talking now about the single, The Bitch Is Back. Also had the horns, the Tower of Power,
yeah. I mean,
including
it's
Lenny Pickett. Is that a name that rings a bell with
that
you?
does not ring a bell with me.
He apparently was the leader or was a central figure in the SNL band, and he played the solo sax
Oh
on
yeah.
Bitch Is Back.
Okay.
So that was Lenny
So
Pickett.
that would be right about this time then. The SNL takes shape in the mid 70s. I think this is maybe the first year, 74, 75. I assume you're going to get to the whole meaning of the song, right? And so the notion of the bitch, I mean, it was
Well,
the bitch is, I mean, is the bitch addiction? I mean, this is always sort of a little cloudy in my mind, so maybe you can help set me straight.
well, the idea to create the song was inspired by Toppin's wife at the time, Maxine Feebleman, who would say, "Oh, the bitch is back," whenever John was in a bad mood.
Oh,
"Oh, the
okay.
bitch is back,"
Well, yeah, I can see that.
and later John would comment, "It's kind of my theme song." Um, and it's kind of a spoof of the celebrity lifestyle and so on and so forth. But I think you're suggesting that the bitch is another name for the monkey on one's back.
Yeah, I think, and that's how, I mean, right. And so that was part of what was floated during the era was that this was a song because, I mean, candidly, it seems pretty tame now, but the use of bitch in the mid 1970s was considered risque and right on the edge. And
Well,
so,
it yeah, it was controversial. It led
yeah,
to a number of radio stations simply not playing it.
right. Yes, exactly.
The program director of WPIX FM in New York told Billboard, quote, "We will play records that are borderline suggestive records, such as Disco Lady, but we will not play The Bitch Is Back by Elton John. We won't play those types of records no matter how popular they get." And responding to that whole controversy,
Yeah.
John said, quote, "Some radio stations in America are more puritanical than others," end quote. So he was like, "Yeah, okay." But yes,
It was an issue. I mean,
it
it
was
was
an
an
issue.
issue, and in the day, it was something that kept. I mean, it was a very popular song, but I guess it maybe could have been more popular. But it's the
Well,
thing about it.
just a couple of years later, the Bad Blood with Neil Sedaka with Elton John as a backing vocal.
Oh, it's
Um,
the bitches in her
uh,
smile,
the bitches in her smile. But anyway,
and
also,
then it's Hall and Oates. Then a couple of years later, right? Rich Girl, maybe even just a year later. Um, but it was, yeah. But the thing about this song
you
was,
need something to rhyme with Rich.
I guess so. Yeah. This song just as unleashes Davy Johnstone. And there is, I don't know that I mean, I'm not intimately familiar with the entire Elton John canon, but I don't know of any song that he ever recorded that rocks like this. I mean, it just from the get-go explodes. And with the overdubs and whatnot, it is a tour de force for David Johnstone in particular.
Let's just listen in.
it is. I mean, it is. I mean, this is an extraordinary number, and this is so far ahead of anything else I think on Caribou.
Well, see, that's the thing though. You have an album that's like universally panned, right? But it still has two songs on it that are better than many songs on albums that are
Well,
are well
agreed.
loved.
Agreed. Agreed.
So that's
And
that's
so
pretty impressive in itself.
yeah, no pushback here at all on that. And I think it's also likely that if they had more than 9 days or whatever it was to work on the album, that it would have, yielded something, because they had a lot of material to work with. And, but
And they
you
had a
just
lot of
can't,
talent
but you
hanging
just
around
can't,
coming
right?
through there at that
You
time.
certainly did.
Wow.
But, this is just not how you create an album. And I just, there is a certain something about Caribou that's so problematic is because the albums before it were so incredible. I mean, they
I
really
think
are.
that,
The album, they're like the best albums of all time. And then the drop off is just so extraordinary that it's just
don't you think you start
hard to
to
imagine.
maybe get a feeling that you can do no wrong and that,
Well, y-
and maybe, yeah, well, okay, we'll kick out an album in 9 days. We're that good. We can do it.
yeah, I think given the amount of substances that were flowing through the band at that point, I mean, and there, it's a world full of yes men, and I think all of that, right? Sure,
And that's another
and
thing that gives some credibility to the idea that the bitch is the addiction, because that was certainly something that they were dealing with at that time. It had
right,
started.
totally right. Yeah, that's right. It's and it will be the rest of the '70s will be quite bleak, I think, for Elton John, and personally, and I think to some degree professionally. We're never going to see Yellow Brick Road again from him. Um, and we're going to see a lot more of Caribou from Elton John, unfortunately. And so there we go. So Bitch is back at number 7, a
Yes.
great song from a lousy album. Um, at number 8, I don't have a lot to say about Blue Swede's version of Never My Love. So Blue Swede, who we talked about last year with the Hooked on a Feeling, which is, has its charms.
Yes.
Um, but the Never My Love is the Blue Swedes version of the Dick and Donna Idrisi's song penned in the late 1960s, made famous by, well, the Association amongst others. Um,
And
Hooked on a Feeling.
that should be a red flag to anybody looking for a song to cover. Well, the
All right.
Association did it.
Well,
Well,
a word of defense of the association. I do think that this is, yeah, there are some songs of the association that are Cherish comes to mind,
Cherish. Well, let's cover that.
but there are also then some songs from the association that are quite interesting. But okay, I'm not going to push back too hard. But so okay, so but here's the real interesting thing about Never My Love, which I think it's fair to say that neither of us are particularly all that fond of. Whether it doesn't matter who this, Jerry Vale could sing it, but it doesn't make any difference. Um, it is the number 2 most played song on radio according to BMI. So when you look, okay, so yeah, so what do you think number 1 is? And I'm gonna give you some hints. So number 1
The
is a
Lion
song
Sleeps
that
Tonight.
no, it's not. Let me give you my hints.
All
It
right.
is a song that is associated with the duo. It's a song that comes from the late 1960s. Um, it's a song I think that's associated with Phil Spector. Um, I believe, in fact, he produced it, although I should have maybe looked that up.
Oh, you believe it, but you don't know.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that he did. It
Uh,
is from a
is
duo, though, a
all
male
right.
duo.
Is the duo a mixed duo or same-sex duo?
Uh, two guys, two men,
All right,
two
and
men.
I'm going with the Righteous Brothers and uh, Unchained Melody.
Oh, look at you. No, it's not Unchained Melody.
This is the Righteous Brothers.
It's the Righteous Brothers. It's the
Uh,
only other song the Righteous Brothers are known for,
uh,
except for Rock and Roll Heaven, which is
well,
live.
uh, you've lost that loving feeling, and
Yes,
Spectre did produce that.
there we go. So yes, as I sneeze unprofessionally, yes, it was Spectre. So you lost your number 11 feeling is number one. And so the thing,
Wow.
the only yeah. So the only thing that I think is noteworthy about the Blue Swede version, which we'll listen to here, is the fact that it's up tempo, which is a good thing given that you get you through the song a little bit more quickly. So this is
I
Blue.
don't think it's a bad song. I, you know, but
Eh, okay. Well, all right. This is Blue Swede's version, an up-tempo version of Never My Love.
Never My Love.
You ask me if there'll come a time when I grow tired of you. Never my love, never my love. You wonder if this heart of mine will lose its desire for you. Never my love.
All right. Well, I think not terrible. Maybe the best we can say for this, but that's it for
I
Blue.
think the lead vocals were fine. That little the
Okay.
never have I wasn't particularly fond of that, but
Fair enough. I think I'm with you. But so there we have it. At number 8, it's Blue Swede, and we will say bid Blue Swede adieu from the charts with Never My Love. At number 9, I don't know exactly how to set this up. The 70s were an unusual era. And one of the things that was unusual about them is that comedy records, comedy singles, would get traction and be on the charts. And there was a comedy duo, I think maybe as big as any in this era, and it's Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong. And at number 9, honest to God, it's Earache My Eye.
Earache My Eye from Cheech and Chong's wedding album. It's their fourth studio album, released on Ode Records.
That's Lou Adler's label, the same label that Tapestry is on.
Yes.
Not to steal your thunder, but I mean,
Well,
holy crap.
in fact, Lou Adler produced it.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I'm not. So the album cover of Cheech and Chong's wedding
Oh,
album is worth talking about.
oh, this
Designed
is
by
great.
Peter Corsten, and it contains some unique artwork. The whole thing was meant to actually look like a wedding album. The cover of the album, um, and there's a wedding picture, the wedding party on the cover with what we used to call Siamese twins,
Oh no.
conjoined
Oh no.
conjoined twins, and
No.
the bride with a brown paper bag over her head, and
Oh,
very obviously pregnant, among other things. So, uh,
a very different era.
yes, but also very typical for the type of humor that we get from Cheech and Chong. Um, anyway, that was the cover of the album. The writers, of course, of this piece were Cheech and Chong. Tommy Chong, by the way, is Canadian, and one of his Canadian colleagues, certain Gay Delorme, wrote the music to this piece, which became certified gold, by the way. There's this,
Oh my God.
there's There's a musical
Oh, of
piece
course he did.
embedded in a sketch of theirs. The sketch is uh, uh, a teenage kid rolls out of bed, moaning and coughing, and the first thing he does is he puts a loud record on. Just a couple minutes later, his dad's there. Turn that thing down. Hey, you got to go to school.
Yeah.
And there's this typical parent-child interaction in the sketch around the song. But um, part of the conflict is the fact that he's playing this ungodly song at an ungodly volume. Um, but it's kind of catchy. We'll play it in just a second. But talk about controversy. My Lord, the Bitch's Back is nothing against what this set off. Um, anyway, the music was written by the guitarist, Gabe Delorme, this Canadian guitarist. Had Erto Moriara on drums, and it's just kind of yeah, it's kind of fun and rocky. But the song hit its peak. It reached the top 10 in the United States and Canada, more or less by accident. And by the time anybody realized, wait a second, what are they playing here on my station? All of a sudden, station managers and owners, especially for the AM stations, were going, oh, we can't. They were pulling the song off the air.
Wow.
Usually following multiple complaints. They didn't even know what was happening, and they were getting complaints from angry parents, uh, teachers, psychologists, principals, school administrators, counselors, clergy, all talking about how it appealed to the lowest common denominator, junkies, dropouts, drug addicts, drunkards, uh,
Oh,
students
well,
playing hooky from class. A very, very bad model for behavior. You cannot play this. And there were plenty of people who were threatening to boycott the stations if the song was not permanently withdrawn.
I can totally believe this from this era. Yeah.
Yes. And so, in some cases, you had radio managers threatening to fire any disc jockey who played it. We're not going to take requests for it, nothing. So the fact that it got as high on the charts as it did was in spite of the fact that there was essentially a radio blackout that occurred at some point.
That's amazing. Oh, that's amazing. Which is, yeah, I mean, no, the only publicity, the bad publicity is no publicity. So,
So they say, yeah.
but it's, yeah, well, we should,
Let's listen in.
yeah, let's listen in.
At least to the music portion of this.
Totally remember this single. I had an acquaintance who had it. We listened to it over and over again and again and again.
The world's coming to an end. I don't even care. As long as I can have a limo and my orange hair. And it don't bother me if people think I'm funny. 'Cause I'm a big rock star and I'm making lots of money. Money, 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 money. I'm so bloody rich. I own apartment buildings and shopping centers. And I only know 3 chords. What's me You fool! I said turn that thing down and get ready for school! Hey! What are you trying to do? You ruined my record, man. I just bought it.
I know you have this at home on your
Definitely, I definitely remember this single. It is as well, I mean, self-indulgent is a phrase that comes to mind when it comes to the Cheech and Chong of this era. But this was they were, as they say, pushing the envelope, and they were the face, the voice of the counterculture, what was left of the counterculture to some degree, the stoner culture. Um,
Oh,
in this,
definitely. Yeah.
and they very much were they were very edgy, right? And so to play, so if a radio station would be playing Cheech and Chong, um, it was a kind of nod to a certain segment of the listening audience. So it's yeah. So there we go. So God, number 9,
Well,
Earache My Eye. I mean, it's
yeah, and the song was attributed to uh, Marie Bowie. Some
I think
some
Alice Bowie.
Alice. Thank you,
Alice
Alice
Bowie.
Bowie from Alice Cooper and David Bowie. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Well, it's this is just one of those things that's just difficult to explain, right? Because you know that people bought this, people listened to it, some radio stations played it.
Well, and I think,
Eh, yeah.
usually when parents and establishment figures get all up in arms and get emotional about something like that, it's because they're not entirely wrong. It is having an effect on
All right.
their
Yeah.
kids that they don't want to to be having. I think there are a lot of young people from the 1974 that could really identify with that. Um,
Well, I mean, that's right. I mean, it's not as though Cheech and Chong didn't have their finger on the pulse. I mean, they definitely did. I mean, they knew how this was playing out in homes across the United States. It's just, I don't know.
Mama talking to me, trying to tell me how to live, but I don't listen
There's,
to her because my head is like a sieve.
if you were to have told, oh my God, if you were to told me though that that musical interlude was produced by Frank Zappa,
Oh,
I
yeah.
would have believed it. But
Yes.
in fact, it's got Lou Adler's fingerprints on it. And Mr. Adler's got some explaining to do, as far as I'm concerned. And so,
Well, he went on to
yeah,
do the Rocky Horror Picture Show too, so
you're not helping Adler's case any, as we are collecting a dossier for the International War Crimes Tribunal. Um, so number 9, we have Earache My Eye with Cheech and Chong featuring Alice Bowie. At number 10, then, in the top 10 of mid October 74, it's the supergroup known as Bad Company. Bad Company came together in 73 from the ashes of the band Free. And so that, so from Free, which All Right Now, I think is a song that many people remember from Free.
it's
That's
the song that
Paul,
people remember from
yeah.
me. Yeah.
Paul Rogers and Simon Kirke came from Free. Boz Burrell was a bass player for King Crimson, Robert Fripp's outfit. And Mick Ralphs had left Mott the Hoople Ian Hunter's band, which would then come to an end shortly thereafter. And so these 4 get together in 73, and it's there's quite a bit of excitement. There's quite a bit of talent. Among other things, you've got a number of writers in the band, including Ralphs and Rogers specifically. And so Can't Get Enough is from their self-titled debut album, which is it's a stone cold classic. And so the first Bad Company album is awesome. Bad Company would later go on to record for the Led Zeppelin Swan Song imprint. And so they had this kind of interesting relationship with Zeppelin. They had a number of hits, although they never never reached the heights that they did with Can't Get Enough, which peaked at number 5 on the singles charts. But I think it's fair to say that
Feel
their
like Making
albums,
Love did not get
it
up
did
there?
not, it made it to number 10.
Huh.
So it is, yeah. So it's but it's their albums are, I think, almost uniformly magnificent.
Oh, I love Desolation Angels.
I mean, I mean, Run with the Pack. Oh, these albums are great, and their deep cuts are terrific. And I'll just ask the question, like, why the hell is Bad Company not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, seriously, this band was I mean, it was. They had a certain sophistication. They could rock, and but they had a certain sophistication that was
Great
It
balance too. I
was.
mean,
Oh yeah,
they could do it all.
yeah, this from this first album, for example, Seagull is on it, which is as good a song as they ever recorded. This just it's fantastic. And so I mean, you don't need us to sort of praise Bad Company, but it's one of those bands that I think have we've sort of lost track of a little bit. But this is a terrific band from the 70s from this first album. And so I guess this is a time to listen to Can't Get Enough. And this thing pops from the beginning. And so here we go.
I can't get enough of your love. I can't get enough of your love. I can't get enough of your love.
There's just they had it all, and I don't know that there's a better vocalist
I
than
was just
Paul.
going to say, Paul Rogers, man,
I mean, it's just unbelievable how
yeah,
terrific he is.
yeah.
And Paul Rogers, who would eventually pair up with Jimmy Page for a while in the Firm, and then have a stint with the remaining members of Queen. But Paul Rogers in Bad Company, I mean, it's peak Paul Rogers.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a band, what a song. So so that's a Bad Company number 10 with Can't Get Enough. Okay, let's cherry pick a little bit from the remaining some songs from the top 40. Oh, well, so I'm excited. Now here's the deal. Mac Davis was a figure in the 70s of some note. He's one of those figures who was a songwriter who had a kind of presence on the charts. He also then dipped his toe into acting and became a kind of well-known figure in this era.
He was very
As a,
telegenic.
He was modestly telegenic. He's a kind of poor man's Christopherson, perhaps. Well, maybe
Yeah, maybe.
on his
Maybe so.
maybe on his best day. Mac Davis, who passed away in 2020, was also well known for his links with Elvis Presley. He wrote for Elvis. He also was a kind of friend. I don't know that he was ever part of the Memphis Mafia, but he certainly had a number of he spent a lot of time with Elvis and felt very strongly about Elvis. But Mac Davis, so it's 1974, and Mac Davis has dipped his toe into the variety show waters, which
I was
we have
just
talked
gonna
about
say,
it
yes.
many times. So the 70s are known for many things, but on television, American television, variety shows are ubiquitous. And seemingly dang near everybody had their own variety show at one time or another, and Mac Davis is one of them. And so Mac Davis in 1974 has this so-called Mac Davis show on NBC, and will remain on NBC for 3 years. Never a particular ratings favorite. The Mac Davis show this year in 74 and 75 would tie for 39th in the Nielsen ratings out of 50 shows rated. But here's the thing. Variety shows were not particularly expensive. You could kind of just place them in the schedule, just kind of willy-nilly. And oftentimes they would serve as a kind of replacement vehicle. And that's in fact what happened with Mac Davis. And so the Mac Davis show lasted for 3 years, but he only filmed 36 episodes because NBC would just, have it and take it out and then put it back in. And it was a kind of utility player for the NBC television folks during this era.
Well, it kind of gave the Hollywood Squares people something to do when they weren't in their squares.
Well, this is, I mean, to your point, I mean, right. I mean, how many variety shows did Paul Lynde, for example, show up in talk about flavor of the month, Paul Lynde. But right. So the other thing about variety shows is that these people would show up on each other's variety shows, right? And so suddenly, Mac Davis said, look, there's Carole Burnett. And look, there's Shields and Yarnell. And hey, look, a special musical guest, Tony Orlando and Dawn. This kind of thing happened, I think, with some frequency. And so they, kind of rotating cast of guest stars. So at number 12, then, Stop and Smell the Roses is the song we want to talk about it briefly. It's not great, but it is what it is.
It's fine. It's a fine song.
It's a song written by Mac. It's okay. It's a song it's more interesting maybe than you might imagine because of the people who wrote it. Mac Davis,
Your wife
And
and I were able to quote half of the lyrics
yeah, no,
here 50 years later,
that's really
just off the top of our heads. So, we must have had something.
so. I'm just going to leave that alone. But Mac Davis co-wrote this with one Doc Severinsen.
Oh,
So Doc
okay.
Severinsen, this will mean something to some of the people watching and listening to us. To many, it won't. Doc Severinsen was a trumpeter of note during the 1970s and later became a band leader of note. Doc Severinsen, who was born in 1927, is still alive at the age of 97. Doc
Wow.
Severinsen uh, joined the musicians at NBC in 1947, playing first on radio and then moved to television. He was on, so it was very common for television networks to have their own musicians on staff. He eventually then made it to The Tonight Show, first in the band and then later as the musical director of The Tonight Show, which he directed. The Tonight Show band from 1967 till Johnny Carson's retirement in the early 1990s. Severinsen was noted not just for his trumpet skills, but also for his wardrobe, his sartorial splendor, right? He always wore the loudest of outfits, which was a kind of running punchline with Carson and The Tonight Show. But Severinsen had the chops and was a gifted musician, and that Tonight Show band was excellent. And as much they oftentimes are sort of in skits and things like that, I mean, to some degree sort of downplayed their expertise. The band itself was terrific, and Severinsen himself was quite gifted. But this is an interesting pairing between Davis and Severinsen. And so Stop and Smell the Roses would peak at number 9 on the pop charts, but only number 40 on the country charts, which surprises me maybe a little given Mac Davis's country cornpone appeal. So let's listen to a brief cut from Stop and Smell the Roses, and we'll count our many blessings
Along the way.
Oh, goodness. All right, here we go.
Hey, mister, where you going in such a hurry? Don't you think it's time you realized there's a whole lot more to life than work and worry? All the sweetest things in life are free, and they're right before your eyes. But you got to stop and smell the roses. You got to count your many blessings every day. You're gonna find your way to heaven. There's a rough and rocky road if you don't stop and smell the roses along the way.
That's not just a song, ladies and gentlemen. Those are words to live by.
That's an anthem.
That's an anthem. That's a way of life. Oh goodness. So that's Mac Davis at number 12.
And see, we would have never known that he was a philosopher if he had not written that.
Although I tend to think maybe that's Doc's influence. I mean, that's just a guess. All right, let's keep cherry picking. Let's get to a song that whoa. So this song will answer whatever happened to David Palmer. At number 15, it's Carole King's Jazzman.
Yeah. All right. I'll be honest about. Let's just start this off. We've mentioned Lou Adler twice now.
Yes, we have. Everybody
and-
drink Lou Adler.
And he produced this album and this song as well. Jazzman Carole King came from her Wraparound Joy album. It was her sixth album, and it was released in 1974. It peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200 albums chart in late 1974.
Which is this is definite afterglow from Tapestry, right? So we're a couple albums removed from Tapestry, but she still then has that kind of appeal in the marketplace.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, Dave, but number 1 album in the 70s means something, right? And
Yes.
so that's no small feat in the era of like Led Zeppelin and whatnot. So yeah.
Right. Albums didn't really matter in the 60s, but in the 70s they've come into their own, and
Totally agree.
they kind of defined the market at this point. I loved Tapestry, and I think it was an absolute masterpiece. And
I think I know where you're going with this.
after that, it was all downhill for me, as far as Carole King was concerned. But that's just me. Clearly, this album also did well. It didn't do as well as Tapestry did,
Well, most
which
albums
I
don't.
think was the top-selling record in history until Thriller, maybe.
It's something like that, and I think it remains, if not it's the one of the top selling albums from a female performer ever. I mean, right? Tapestry is a masterpiece that has few. Well, it's just it stands above everything else she ever did in her career, and almost anybody else and anyone else ever did in their career. So, I mean, yeah, nowhere to go but down.
Yeah.
But Jazzman, come on, man.
Jazzman. Okay, this peaked at the number 2 spot. Behind it was stuck behind Bachman Turner Overdrive. You ain't seen nothing yet. So
Baby. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It also reached number 4 on the easy listening chart. Billboard described Jazzman as one of King's most commercial songs, which I don't
I mean, come
I don't
on.
I don't
Are
get,
they, are they
but
unaware? Are they unaware of her career with Jerry Goffin, for example?
well, maybe they're talking about as a singer. But
Okay, as a
but
solo. Okay. I
but
mean,
even then, I don't really understand that. Whatever.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
praised the saxophone playing, backup vocals. So they were very pleased with
That's
the production.
that's Tom Scott, isn't it?
Um, Tom Scott was
Where does Tom Scott fit in? He's into this. He's in the story.
he did the sax solos. Yes. Um, but the, the Jazzman that she had in mind when she was writing this, um,
She wasn't writing about Tom Scott. Tom Scott of LA Express, who was a longtime session musician and played with everybody, including Joni Mitchell for a long time. Right.
the Jazzman that she was writing about was Curtis Amy.
Well, let's get to the David Palmer part of this.
All right. Uh, Steve, who was
This is one of
David Palmer?
well, okay. So thank you for
where
asking.
did he come from?
Well, this is one of the odd things. Steely Dan um, was a band. It was obviously a band that was led by and denominated by, I mean, it's the creative vision of Donald Fagen and Walter Becker. But the original manifestation of Steely Dan was, in fact, a band, and
They had a band. They actually had some other
they had a
music
band. There was
involved.
continuity in the band, including a lead vocalist, a guy by the name of David Palmer. So that first album, while the drummer Jim Hodder sings on one song, David Palmer sings on several of the songs, including "Dirty Work." And so Palmer was let go after that first album. So, and then the rest of the band, I think, carried on for another album or two. But Palmer then he did a number of things. I know he was into photography, but he created a kind of an alliance with Carole King here, and he was involved in the writing of this song. Now, you're going to fill in the gaps because I just know that he's on the credits, but I don't know exactly what he contributed to the song. But did
And
Palmer contribute lyrics? I don't because she
well, of
would.
course, she wrote the music. Yes,
Yes.
she
So
wrote the music,
and she
as
famously,
was her wont.
yeah, she
That
famously
was her
would
thing.
partner with people. Yeah, Tony
Yeah.
Stern, even with Tapestry. But yeah, so Palmer, it's interesting. So because I think for me, this is peak Carole King.
Okay.
And I know that you see it differently. And I actually think that this might be, in fact, my favorite Carole King song.
Wow. Okay.
I think it's not even close, actually. I've always thought this song was great. It's again punctuated by Tom Scott's brilliance, but there's something about this song that is just, I think, terrific. And so, yeah, all right.
Oh well, let's listen in.
Lift me, won't you lift me above the old routine? Make it nice, play it clean, Jazzman. When the jazzman's testify and a faithless man believes, he can sing you into paradise or bring you to your knees.
Okay.
That's Apex Mountain, Carole King. It never got better.
Listen
And
tough.
that's that's so good. That is so good. And it peaked at number 2, you say?
Yes.
All
They
right.
had Bach and
Well,
Turner Overdrive.
so there we have it at number 15, Carole King and Jazzman. All praise Tom Scott too for his work there. Let's cherry pick a little more, shall we? Well, Nothin says country rock like Dave Zook, but no, sorry, that's unfair. But this is a country rock super act at number 27. This is I know you don't care much for country rock, and I don't know why I've poking at you, but it's the Souther Hillman Furay band at 27 with "Fallen in Love." So this is
Oh, wait, just to correct that. I don't like classic country western music. Never really cared for it. But country rock, there's a lot of country rock that I think
see,
is
there we
okay.
go. All right, there we go. A useful corrective, and so I there we go. Thank you. So this is the band that was put together by one David Geffen, and so in this era, Geffen put together what was Asylum Records, and he the album lasted, well, I mean, he had a number of interesting acts, including the Eagles.
Made a shitload of money. Yeah.
Yeah, and then walked away from it famously. And Geffen is a mercurial figure, but somebody who was instrumental in this era of music, helped put together a number of groups, and he made things happen. And this is one of his. This has his fingerprints all over it. So, Richie Furay was a co-founder of a group called Buffalo Springfield, and Buffalo Springfield famously involved Stephen Stills and Neil Young. Buffalo Springfield, which recorded a couple of albums, started on a third album, and then famously Neil Young walks away from it, which is sort of Neil Young's move. From the ashes of Buffalo Springfield, then Richie Furay then co-founds a group called Poco, which becomes a kind of, I mean, it's Poco's unfortunate legacy to some degree is as the AAA farm club of the Eagles. There's a number of Poco members ended up joining the Eagles. But he was a buddy with Stephen Stills. Furay was a buddy with Stephen Stills. Chris Hillman was an early member of the Byrds. There's some dispute as whether or not he was a co-founder, but I mean, he was there at the beginning, and he was there during the golden era. After the Byrds, after he pulled out of the Byrds, as many people did, only McGuinn really stayed with them. Hillman helped to co-found then the Flying Burrito Brothers, alongside a guy by the name of Gran Parsons, who, in sort of country rock circles, was one of the key figures. Parsons is again a kind of curious figure, and he had a stint with alongside the Keith Richards and the Rolling Stones, and Graham Parsons had his fingers in lots of things. He was a curious figure. But the Burrito Brothers, while they were in motion, this was really kind of peak country rock, and some people still see the Five Burrito Brothers as the best of all of these bands in the late 60s. After eventually Hillman would have a lot of success on the country charts with his Desert Rose Band, which is not a group that we're going to be intimately familiar with, but they charted a lot during the 1980s on the country charts. The Souther of the Souther Hillman Furay brand is one John David Souther, who just recently, as we record this, passed away. Souther, who was a buddy of Glenn Frey, and in fact, for a short time, worked with Frey in a twosome known as the Long Branch Penny Whistle. Souther was there at the beginning of the Eagles. He co-wrote many of the Eagles songs that we know and love, including Heartache Tonight, Best of My Love, Sad Cafe, James Dean. Souther had somewhat of a career as a solo artist as well. Again, he co-wrote Her Town 2, a duet with James Taylor, which got the top to the top 10. Souther, I think, was considered a kind of songwriter. Again, a person who would have spent a lot of time at the Troubadour and somebody who was connected both professionally and personally with Linda Ronstadt. So you've got these people, these disparate individuals, to some degree disparate personalities, put together by David Geffen, and then alongside you have people like Joe Lala, who had been in Manassas, which was a Stephen Stills country rock group, and so it's a kind of super group. Now, they will only record 2 albums. They will disintegrate. Disintegrate's overstated. They went to other individual projects. These are particularly J.D. Souther. J.D. Souther could have joined the Eagles, but he never was really interested in being in a group. And so again, this group comes apart after a couple of years. But Fallen in Love peaks at 27, and I think it's a smoking hot number. And so let's listen to a little bit of it today. I think it's one of those songs that is a little bit kind of been forgotten, but there is something to it that is excellence. I think that song's great. And so I guess
I was not familiar with it.
Story of what could have been, but the Souther Hillman Furay band with Fallen in Love at number 27. And so the last song you'd like to talk about today, there must be a reason, and Dave's going to tell us what it is, but it's that those crazy kids from Sweden, ABBA, with Honey Honey.
There must be a reason.
Oh,
Of course there's a reason. I don't know that it's necessary. Honey Honey is a fantastic song by a fantastic group, loved by millions the world over. I don't know if you need a reason beyond that, but that's
all right. So tell us more about Honey Honey.
well, okay. This is of course we've already talked about ABBA. They've already made their world debut.
Yes.
With Waterloo.
That's right.
And this is kind of their follow-up. Waterloo itself is their second studio album.
Right.
The first released internationally. It was originally released on March 4th, 1974 through Polar Music, which was Stig Anderson's
right.
music company. Stig Anderson, who also co-wrote songs and managed ABBA. We talked at length about him when we were discussing Waterloo. So I'll just leave it at that for this time.
So, but again, so Waterloo is the Eurovision song. They they take Europe by storm. They again take the world by storm with Waterloo. And then Honey Honey is the follow-up.
Yes, yeah, and from the same album, written by Bjorn and Benny and Stig Anderson, and produced by Bjorn and Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus. The B and the B from ABBA.
Yeah.
And it was Honey Honey was released in several European countries. It was released in the United States and Australia and New Zealand. It was not released in the UK. Um,
Well,
Epic,
be grateful of small favors, perhaps.
Epic Records, ABBA's British record label, decided to release a remixed version of Ring Ring instead of Honey Honey.
I have to say, I like Ring Ring. I think I like it more than Honey Honey. I think, yeah.
Well,
But I mean,
all right, all right.
I don't want to derail you. Yeah, Honey Honey.
Um, that single, the re-release of Ring Ring, only reached number 32, while a cover version of Honey Honey, recorded by Sweet Dreams, featuring Polly Brown, hit the UK top 10. So
Man.
Honey Honey made it to the top 10, but not as an ABBA song.
And who was the vocalist for Sweet Dreams?
Polly Brown.
Nah, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Never heard of her.
But it's so a remix of Honey Honey
Yes.
connected with the British populace
A cover
in a way
version.
that
Yes.
cover. Yes. Wow.
Because it's a great song,
That's
but
okay.
you know. So Honey Honey spent 4 months in the top 5 in West Germany. 4 months. It also reached the top 5 in Austria, Spain, and Switzerland.
A case of collective psychosis, perhaps.
In the United States, Honey Honey was only moderately successful compared to the group's later singles.
Can I guess? Can I guess what it peaked at in the US?
Sure.
It's not. It didn't get into the top 20. It didn't get into the top 20, did it?
No.
Maybe like 23, maybe something like that.
It reached number 27.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Both the Billboard Hot 100s and the Adult Contemporary charts. This was the first ABBA hit or single to reach the Adult Contemporary charts. Well, considering that there have been 2 so far, that's not so surprising.
well,
Cashbox called it, quote, a sweet pop rocker featuring tight harmonies and excellent production.
you're
That
trying so
describes-
hard to build this up. It's just God bless you.
That describes most of ABBA's output.
Well, yeah, I know right.
Right? Record World said that, quote, the Scandinavian rockers take on a gentle, caloric, self-penned side.
Oh, there we go. Lord.
So can you
Lord.
explain to me what that means?
I don't know. No, I can't.
I included that because I thought maybe you could give me some insight. I read that several times and
I don't think it's altogether positive.
caloric,
I don't think that's-
self-penned side.
I don't think that's. Well, actually, I'm not sure. I don't think it's a real compliment, but
Well,
I'm not 100% sure.
it is hard to tell.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's interesting. All right.
so this is Honey Honey. Let's listen in.
Honey, honey, how you feel me? Honey, honey. Honey, honey, nearly killed me. Honey, honey. I heard about you before. I wanted to know some more. And now I know what they mean. You're a love machine. Oh, you make me dizzy.
Woo.
Oh, just
So it's interesting. We put these shows together. We do the top 10 and then we will cherry pick a little bit. And it's always interesting then the cherry picking because that typically we have a point. It's either an important artist or it's an important song or something.
like this one was.
I think you owe the world the audience an apology of some. This is it's astounding to me that they
We have a
rebounded.
comment section, so feel free to tell Steve why he's wrong.
I just think it's amazing that we selected this or that you selected this, and it's amazing that they came back from this because this is a terrible song. But
All right, well,
there we go.
we're
So
interested in hearing your opinion.
Yeah, so
Maybe Steve
we-
will finally see that this is more of an important pop song than he
Let us-
thinks.
let us all praise Honey Honey. And so with that, that's it for October 12th, 1974. Oh, Dave, why don't you take us home?
I'd be happy to. If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you did, you can subscribe right here. You can listen to another 50 years ago this month right up here. And as always, you'll want to make sure you check out the playlist. Just a lot of great music right here.
There we go. And as always, we will include a reading list so you get more insight into the figures that we mention, even the peripheral figures that we talk about. And we are posting now on BlueSky. We're putting new content on BlueSky every day. And so,
Thank God,
well,
finally.
thank God, finally. And so with that, we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.